What's going on, hockey fans, one and old? This is Landsman here, and it's another episode of Shooting the Shit. And today, it's a real honor for me. This is like something that I am just still shell-shocked about. I am meeting the man, the one and only, the guy who inspired me to do hockey journalism, Dan Moriarty. What's going on?
That's a crazy thing to hear, David. I'm happy to be part of that sentence, and I'm moved to be part of that sentence. And when you got a hold of me through LinkedIn, I thought this is really one of the cooler things about social media. I just love it.
You know what? If people don't know, I mean, for me, I've been a hockey fan since I was about 4. So it's been 31 years. And for me, I always wanted to be in the game, but I couldn't skate for shit. So I had to relegate to being behind the scenes. So I did a lot of writing. And when I was about, 11 or 12, I started watching this program on CBC called NHL Cool Shots, hosted by Dan. And at the time, he was hosting it with a woman named Jennifer Smith. And it was something that I used to watch religiously with my brother. And it was talking all about, hockey. They would go to a hockey city. They would explore the culture of the city, the hockey culture of the city, interview the players, the management, and also do some interactive stuff with the fans. And it was just so fun to watch that every Saturday I used to watch it. Then when I was 13, I went to the NHL Awards, and at the end of the night, I'm in the auditorium, the dinner's done, just collecting autographs, meeting players and being like, oh my God moments. And in the back of the room, I see Dan, Jen, and their camera guy. And I'm like, holy shit. I look at my brother, I'm like, we gotta go. And I remember I approached you, 13-year-old me, so no beard, less hair, less grays and whites.
And hold on, and I had maybe some facial hair for that show, and I had no gray hair. So we both have changes to our face and head.
Exactly. And then I remember I approached you guys, and I said that, we're big fans of your show. We watch you religiously. And then I said that we also like to do your catchphrase. Hi, this is Dan Moriarty, and you're watching NHL Cool Shots. And it was at that moment you told your camera guy to film it.
Come on.
You told it, yeah. You just said,
hold on. What a good guy I was.
You still are. You still
happy,
are.
Dave. Makes me so happy.
But it was just oh my God, such a moment. And then you said, maybe you'll make the cut. And I didn't think anything of it. You gave us each a little NHL Cool Shots keychain, an mini puck, and a pin. And at that time, I was going around with a binder that my mom had given me, which I think I told you about when we were talking.
You did mention it, yes.
So she gave us a binder. It was a white binder with about 100 pages that were just white. 2
autographs galore.
Yeah, but 2 black pens, and said, go.
What a nice mom you have.
Yeah, and so then at the end of the night, I made my own page for you guys. And I made a fake autograph for you.
Thank you.
It's worth $1 million right now.
Yeah, right.
And I even spelled your name wrong. So there you go.
That's okay.
But yeah,
I've done that too.
So that's the infamous binder that's still around.
Good
so
you, cool.
Yeah. And then that was 13. And then when I was 18, I started writing for a college paper at school. Went on to do it at university as well. And now, 17 years later, I'm still into writing about sports. I still do occasional vlogs for my own channel, for other channels. I write for Habs Eyes on the Prize, and I just have fun with it because I was inspired.
And thank you for letting me be part of an inspiration to you. And thank you for allowing me to have fun with a little young guy to put you on camera. And because that's what Cool Shots was. And for the 8 years we did that show, it was all about, we had a good time. We were very fortunate to have a job hosting a TV show for 8 years. That's a long run for a show. And we did between 40 and 44 or 45 episodes a year. So we were always going someplace. And the thing was, we loved meeting the players. That was fun for me to interview them and interact with them. The best part was meeting people like yourself, meeting fans, because we could bring the game to every person. And we just wanted to make it simple for everyone to meet their stars. And they met them quite often through us, our cameras, our questions. And that was a nice thing about the Cool Shots show. It was a magazine show that had a lot of highlights and had a lot of homespun stories. And we get to know the players. And that was really the best part. Because as you know, David, one of those years I went and played with the Minnesota Wild in training camp.
If you remember that.
And that's not supposed to happen. A person like me should not be on the ice with them. I've been on the ice post-game doing interviews in my suit. I should not be in a uniform on skates with NHL players. But we pulled it off, and that was a fun thing. And I've had a lot of comments since then, Dave. That was the coolest thing because you got to do what we all fantasize about, and you got to be in our place and show us a little bit inside the world of an NHL, a real player, not guys like me, but a real NHL player.
Yeah,
and that was what was really cool about that.
Well, you guys you made it so easy, like it didn't feel like it made it also seem that it was approachable to go to a player. I mean, I have friends who are still 20s and 30s and 40s who still go goo goo gaga over players.
Yeah.
I've learned to keep that to a tone level, I remember back then it was like meeting anyone and everyone was like, you're you. That
Right.
morning of the gala, I was in the pool and my brother pulls me out and says, we got to go to the gym. And Steve Solani was working out with his wife. And it was the first year the Rocket Richard was awarded. And my favorite player was him and Forsberg. And
Nice
my brother's
choices.
favorite player was Korea.
Good choices.
I think so. I think they did all right. They had good careers.
They had
So,
good Hall
yeah.
of Fame careers.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was funny because also, like you said, it may make the cut. Funny enough, after that episode aired, my grandmother told us that a little while after she was recording the Saturday afternoons and it happened to be on the air. And she had it on tape.
That's so cool.
It was surreal. The thing that sucks, though, I never got to see it.
I'm not sure what happened with that. Here's what I'm going to do, though, because because COVID has kept the office of the NHL away from being inside. And I no longer work with them, but I know a lot of people who still are there. I'm going to attempt to make some phone calls and see if we can get a hold of that episode down the road. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe it'll happen sometime. I'm guessing they'll be in the office post-summer when they go back next year to September, October. I bet they're back in the office then when they want to open up everything to post-COVID in New York, Toronto, etc. And let's see if we can get lucky and find that. Because you made the cut. And I have to thank, I'm not sure who edited that show, but thank you, editor or editors who put Dave in the show.
You know what? You don't even have to, just the honor of being able to do this, and think about it, it's just literally almost 22 years to the day that we had that encounter. So it's kind of like full circle.
Yeah.
So I came up with some questions.
What do you got for me, Dave? Throw them at me.
All right. So first and foremost, what's your background? Personal, professional? How did you get to where you are? Because you've done a lot in your life.
I've done a lot. I've had a lot of different careers. Luckily for me, I played college hockey, and I got into college because of hockey. And so I stayed in the business of hockey the best of my ability. But when I moved from Massachusetts, where I was born, to Chicago, where I played in college, to the West Coast to embark on other careers, part of it was Hollywood at first. And luckily for me, Hollywood spun into hosting because I had auditioned for some other things outside of acting, but more hosting. Yep. And I got very fortunate that one of the earlier jobs that I got was Cool Shots. So for me, having had done a few other TV shows, hosting them, some adventure shows, a fishing show, things like that of that nature. And then hockey came along. And what it did for me, Dave, was so lucky because when you're learning how to be in the business, it's really nice to be in a place, a hockey rink, where you're most comfortable. Because I was in a hockey rink my entire life. So when I got into the rink to further my career, it was so smooth and seamless for me that I always thanked Cool Shots for giving me that opportunity. And I ended up having a 20-year career in TV and radio as a host, a sports host. And that was a great run. So that's my background. And what got me into this, I was lucky. I was right place, right time, right background, knew the right people, got the right connections. I did some things with a celebrity hockey team out here in Hollywood, a bunch of major stars and me. And because I played hockey with them in a pickup league, so they invited me to come play hockey with them. And I sent some tapes that I had done to people at the NHL because I had done interviews for the team in different locations. And they said, "Who are you?" And I just got lucky, and then Cool Shots happened.
That's amazing. So like that is how it originated. I mean, like what got you interested in this though? Like, I mean, like from playing hockey to hosting about hockey, it's a little bit of a parallel. Like,
yeah, what got me into it, literally, Dave, was the fact that I had met some people out here when I was a young actor doing bit parts in TV shows and a bunch of commercials, luckily. And I had an opportunity to meet somebody from ABC Kane, which was an arm of ABC that did some shows, some cable type shows. And I got one of them, and it was a lot of adventure things that I would do, and I was hosting that. And from that, spun into doing a fishing adventure show, spun into the exact same time, Cool Shots. And that was it. And that literally, Dave, that was it. I just got lucky. It's like everything else in life, Dave. You get lucky because we all get different opportunities. Mm-hmm. And if you grab it and kick the door down, you might get luckier. There's no guarantee, but when something comes your way and you want it, you have to force yourself in and find a way to make it happen. And that's what happened to me. I got lucky. Same thing with radio. I did a radio show for 8 years based in Southern California on the weekends for Fox Radio in the States. And I forget who carried it in Canada, but it was just a weekend radio show because at one point when I was doing Cool Shots, the producer called me and said, "Would you be a weekly hockey guest for us during the hockey playoffs?" Because it's Southern California, it's the States, they don't cover hockey that often.
It's not the most important sport.
It's not down here. And it's unfortunate for people like us because I just love my hockey. But they said, we need to have a guest on the weekends, and you're the Cool Shots guy. We found you. Okay, would you come on? So I started coming on and doing a weekly segment on the show. And then they said, "Where do you live?" So I live in LA. They said, "Well, we're based in LA." I said, "I know you are." They said, "Well, next time you're in town off the road from Cool Shots, why don't you come in and do the segment in studio?" So I did. And I did not one segment, I did 2 segments in there, walked out, drove home, got a phone call from the producer and said, "My bosses just heard you. Right. And they want to meet you in person." Okay. The next week I had lunch with them, sat down, they said, "We want to offer you the weekend early morning show, 6 a.m. You want it?" I said, "Yeah, but I'm a hockey person. You guys talk football, baseball, basketball. I love those sports, but I don't know them like I know hockey." They said, "It's okay. You're doing interviews. Do your research, know what's going on week to week to week, come with papers and notes and things, and then do interviews." So I began doing a 6 a.m. show on Sunday mornings, which ruined my Saturday dates with my wife, but that's okay. Yeah. It ended up going for 8 years, and what happened was I that advanced into doing the primetime show on Saturdays and Sundays for 8 years. And that was another really cool thing in my career. Dave, just because.
That is the coolest thing ever. I mean, okay, so then I can ask you, since Cool Shots, I mean, it ended, it was 03, was it? Was it 03?
I forget. I'm sorry.
So do I, no offense. I mean, I didn't do
a long time, Dave.
But like, what have you been up to since then?
Since Cool Shots in my NHL days, because I was with the NHL for 12 years total.
Right.
And after Cool Shots went away, I hosted a series called Pioneers, which is on the NHL Network still. Did a series called Relive the Magic, which is, you can find that once in a while online. And I did a lot of other things off camera for interviews for the NHL itself. After that, I spun that into other hosting things because my career lasted 20 years. Doing, again, different TV shows. I did NASCAR, I did monster trucks, I did so many things, which has been great. I had a blast. And then as I kept going, things began to dry up. So I had to pivot. And I started doing a lot of interviews in the Hollywood business world here, doing day or 2 day shoots as a producer, doing red carpets, things of that nature. That was a lot of fun. And that spun into what I am now. I'm a communication and public speaking coach, and I've been doing it for almost 10 years. I have a company with a couple of other friends of mine coaches that were all the same. We were all contract coaches with different companies. We began doing our own stuff. And with COVID, we launched it. We're doing things around the country and the world virtually. And prior to COVID and then post-COVID, we were back on the road flying around. Literally, Dave, in the 9-10 years I've been doing coaching before COVID, I don't know how many countries I've traveled to. I'm sure easily 20, and everything from Australia to Hong Kong to Cape Town, South Africa to Pakistan. I've been all over the place, my friend. And Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar. It's been great. So it's a great thing, and it works well with what I know from my days of interviewing to be a communication speech coach.
Well, you know what? When I was a kid, I had a constant mumble. I still do to this day, but I've learned to enunciate more. So sometimes I tease people when they say you got to enunciate. I will say, yes, I understand what you're saying. So, you know what? I mean, I did communications, but I didn't do as well as you. I mean, you've had a lot of experiences. As a host, we're going to go back to Cool Shots, though, but as a host, what were some of your favorite memories that's like really stood out to you?
One time, the first thing that comes to mind is I was ice climbing on an adventure show up in Whistler, Canada. And we skied that, and we hiked back in the backcountry, and we did ice climbing. And I think of that first because I was petrified.
Oh, you sound scared shit.
I was petrified. Okay. And it was, and I survived, and I'm glad I can talk to you about it. So that was something that sticks out in my mind. That was a real great adventure. I went to Israel with the NHL of all things with Roger Nielsen. He used to do a hockey camp over there. So we were there for 2 weeks doing a hockey camp with Roger Nielsen, of all great men. What a wonderful coach. Rest in peace, Roger. You were awesome. That sticks out for me, being in Israel, talking hockey and doing hockey. And then I also went to the Marshall Islands, which is out in the Central Pacific, going towards Guam, which was the center of the Pacific Theater in World War II. And I was out there for 3 weeks working on my fishing show. I was in the middle of the Pacific. So I've been really, really lucky. Oh, one more thing that comes to mind, because I worked the Paralympics back in 2000 or 2002 in Sydney, Australia. I did an interview, luckily, on the top of the bridge in Sydney, Australia.
Oh, whoa. How'd you pull that off? How did you pull that off?
Well, the NBC had done it earlier during the Olympics, and I went in to cover the Paralympics. And so we knew it could be done, and we had some connections through the production team that I was working with, and they said, we can lock down, because people take tours up the side of the bridge, they lock you in a harness, and you walk to the top and walk back. Great. Can we go up there with an athlete and a camera crew? They said, you can, if you pay us this much money to lock it down for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it was. But it's the Paralympians. You need an athlete who can walk up there by him or herself. And we found this Irish sailor, because the sailing venue was below us in the bridge. So let's get an athlete who's competing right here. And we found this Irish sailor who had lost his leg from his knee down on one of his legs. And he had a prosthetic. And he was such an athlete. And he was amazing. He had a great Irish accent. He was gorgeous, articulate, and was in better shape than any of us with his prosthetic. And he's like, I can run to the top of this darn thing. Let's go. So we got him, went to the top, did the interview on top of the Sydney Harbor Bridge. And that was one of my highlights from my career. And now I can say, the 13 Pioneer episodes we did, because those are the legends of hockey. And I had a chance to sit down with the men who are the history of this sport, from Jean Beliveau to Gordie Howe to Ted Lindsay, Milt Schmidt, Al Arbor, etc., Phil Esposito, etc., etc., etc. My only regret is we only did 13 episodes.
Okay. Wow, that's all those stories. Is like, it just gives you goosebumps. And the climb the Sydney Harbor Bridge, that gives me makes me want to wear a diaper.
I have to thank you for asking the question, because I don't think of these things very often. And all of a sudden you said that, the first thing I thought of was ice climbing. I hated it. I was nervous. I was petrified. And then that went to Israel, hockey, Roger Nielsen, loved the man, and then Marshall Islands, and then Sydney. You just start generating memories for yourself, and things come back. And of course, the one thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, getting a chance to be in the NHL as a fake player with the Minnesota Wild on Cool Shots was such an honor to be out there, and for them to let me be around them. These are the best players in the world. And they
when was that exactly? If like for my
that was 20 years ago, because it was the year 2000. It was the inaugural year for the Minnesota Wild.
Okay.
And that year, the Wild and Columbus Blue Jackets were coming into the league. So we got a hold of both departments for public relations, PR, and Billy Robertson, who is now the commissioner of the USHL. He was a WCHA. Now he's in junior hockey, USHL, the commissioner. I knew him because he was the Ducks prior to that. And once he saw that we had an opportunity for the Wild to do more promotion, he's like, I know Dan, he can skate. Let's get him here. We want the publicity. So I went for 3 days to the Minnesota Wild training camp, flew with them to Anaheim, played one shift against the Anaheim. They were the Mighty Ducks back then. Yeah. And had one shift, and then they made me sit in the bench the rest of the game.
That's so surreal. I mean, just to be on the same ice as them. I mean,
it was surreal because we're hockey fans, and I was lucky to play hockey in college, so I can skate okay, but I'm not that great. And I say it was 20 years ago because it's a 20th anniversary. Yeah. And in that game, I wore number 40 because I was 40 years old. And the day I played that game, I was the oldest guy in the NHL that day.
Yeah. And Jesus.
So I can never forget that.
Wow. So then, I mean, with all these places you got to visit as a host for the other shows for Cool Shots, was there any cities that was really your favorite? You said about when you went to Israel. Were there cities that you really got to visit and say, wow? Could be an NHL city as well. Like if
during my Cool Shots days?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. I was lucky enough to be in every NHL city.
Exactly.
Because that's the way the show worked. We had to go to each city, cover each team, cover players from each team because we were promoting the NHL. I was lucky enough to go to all of them. A couple that stick out. I was in Madison Square Garden on the ice with Theo Fleury when they were doing their skills competition. So we went with Cool Shots to cover it, and I got to take part in the skills. And I always loved Theo Fleury. He's one of the little guys, so we were similar height. we always got along. He was a great interview for me. So I had a lot of fun being with Theo on the ice. Your Madison Square Garden. I mean, come on. I was skating on the MSG ice. So that was fascinating and fun and exciting and just wonderful. So that one pops up right away. Of course, the Minnesota Wild pops up every single time. And you know what was also great, Dave? I was lucky enough to be on the ice when Ray Bourque raised the cup. And because we were the NHL in Colorado, we got to go on the ice immediately after they won the game. He gets the cup and he came right to us. So I get to be his first interview after he had the cup over his head, and how surreal was the moment. And that was great because the NHL allowed us, because we were the NHL's crew, to be on the ice for those moments before anybody else got to the players. And that was very special because it was Ray Bourque. And it was a great moment for him, for hockey, and for the National Hockey League and all the fans. Yeah. It's also one of those things, Dave, he won a cup with the Avalanche. He is a Boston Bruin for 20 years. Hall of Famer as a Boston, but no one cared because he's such a great guy. And hockey fans are such great people that we just wanted him to do well. Even though our Bruin team, his Bruin team, wasn't in the finals, they weren't there, he moves and he wins the cup someplace else. And it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. In fact, it was so okay that if you recall watching it, Joe Sakic, the captain, gives the cup to Ray Parker.
Right away.
Not to anybody else, right to Ray Parker. And that's why hockey, I know we're biased, but hockey's the greatest sport because it has the greatest people.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people overlook that. They think because there are some players, and I'm not going to name names, but there are players that think that they're too hot poo for others, but there's a lot of players at the end of the day, they are just people. You can approach them like anyone else. You can talk to them and just get to know what they're up to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's overlooked because unfortunately with the stigma attached, you're an athlete, you make 6 figures, you make 7 figures. I don't. And but I know that
Neither do I, but thank you.
But I know
7 figures are not in my wheelhouse.
No, 6 figures isn't in my wheelhouse, so don't worry. But anyways, I digress. But there's it's that camaraderie that you can approach them. Yeah. The joke is that I say is that whenever I meet a player back when I was younger, it would be like Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so. Right. Even our first message, I said to you, Mr. Moriarty, and your first message was, "Hi, Dave. Please call me Dan."
Call me Dan, please.
Because
but I did appreciate you saying Mr. Moriarty because it was sharp on your part. Really sharp.
It's professionalism. At the end of the day, it's professionalism. So, but then I grew older, and now, there is maybe two people on the Habs that are older than me. Yeah. So I used to be like Mr. So-and-so, Mr. Koivu, Mr. Recchi. Now it's, hey, Carrie, hey, yeah. Brendan, and it feels weird, but it's like that.
And by the way, being from Montreal, you're in the middle of a great series right now. It's great to have Montreal, of course, for you as a fan from Montreal. It's great, and for me as a fan, I was a fan of the Montreal Canadiens as a child, and to have them back, to have that sweater back in the playoffs, it's magical.
It's not just it is extremely magical. Completely agree. But what's also really cool is that it's this year, as opposed to 2014, the last time we were in this position. Yeah. We actually have a legit shot because we are healthy, knock on wood, but we're healthy, but we're also playing well, and we are not out of it. We are the complete underdogs, but we're pushing teams.
You have what I always feel wins in playoffs, and it's a couple of things. One, it's goaltending. You've got that. 2, it's leadership. Shea Weber, you've got that. 3, it's experience. Your fourth line with Corey Perry and Armia and Stahl. Come on. Look at the years experience those guys. Look at Corey Perry. And I knew Corey when he was playing with the Ducks here, because I worked for the Kings for a year, so I did a lot of stuff with the Ducks as well. Think about there's the Final Four this year is the same as Final Four as last year, 3 teams. Mm-hmm. You have Tampa, you got the Islanders, you've got Vegas. And the 4th team is the one that Corey Perry plays for.
Yep.
He was with Dallas last year. Is he the only reason? Of course not. But look at what he did when he came back on the ice after he cut his face, hugging the guys after game 3 when they're coming off the ice. That's just leadership. That's just camaraderie. That's passion. And don't think that Suzuki and Caulfield don't sit there in awe and say, "Oh my God, not only am I in the NHL, this is how it works." The whole makeup is very special. I wish that Canada was further along with COVID and they could have 15,000 people at the Bell Center. That would be so much better.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. It's two series.
Exactly. And you know what? To be fair, last game on Sunday, which I was fortunate to attend, but was
I'm jealous.
Well, I was volunteering and I wasn't really watching the game except for on a little 40-inch screen. But it's just the fact that was the first game they lost at home.
Yeah.
Since they had a lot of fans.
Yeah.
The fans bring extra energy. It's the X factor that just really pushes them so far. And and
as we record this, Game 5 is going to be a barn burner tonight.
Oh my God! Counting down the hours. So
So let's go. Let's finish this. We had a game to watch.
Seriously, okay, all right. But since the playoffs began, I know that religiously we've been watching the game at home. I will sit on one side of the couch, not my normal side, but on one side of the couch. Right. My wife will sit on one side, and my father-in-law, will sit on the other side. We'll all wear a hockey jersey. We'll all have a can of something, alcoholic or not, and we'll watch. And every game that we've watched in its entirety together, we've won.
All right. Well,
So he's coming over in a bit. So.
I guess it's all on you, Dave.
Yeah, no pressure, right?
None.
So, okay. All right.
What else you got for me, Dave?
I got a few more.
On shooting the shit. I love this.
Well,
great.
I mean, I thought it was the perfect name.
It is.
So, out of your numerous co-hosts over the Cool Shots run, is there any that you still keep in touch with, or?
No, it's not. Jennifer Smith and I ran into each other. I was on the road with one of my other jobs, and I ran into her in Tampa, of all places. Tampa.
Okay.
I was there. I was probably in Tampa doing NASCAR or monster trucks or something, and she was in the same hotel doing something with the gridiron greats of the NFL. And it's just bizarre. I'm in the lobby and I see Jennifer, the woman I used to work on Cool Shots with many years prior. So that was it. I don't see any of them ever again. She was the main one. When I joined, she was the main host and I became her co-host. Then she moved on and I became the sole host for 7 years. And then we had a couple other people that came in and out that worked with me periodically, but no one else.
I'm sorry.
Well, except there was a time I did have a co-host named Sidney Crosby, and I haven't seen him lately, but I had seen him a couple different times post Cool Shots, but I haven't seen him lately.
I've heard of that kid before. Apparently he's kind of good.
He co-hosted one year. In fact, he co-hosted the year before he got drafted.
Okay. That's surreal. Okay.
Yeah, because well, we knew he was going to be the first pick the following year, and we knew we'd get very little time with him. So we had this idea: let's have the guy co-host the show from the draft, who's going to be the number one pick next year. And we had a great time with him.
That's cool. Now, like, I mean, you said you're still obviously you're still very much in the hockey game. Are you still following?
Yeah, every night. It's funny when the playoffs begin, I say to my wife, "Okay, it's 2 months." She says, I know. Well, we'll watch some hockey. She's not a sports fan at all. However, she does watch the hockey in the playoffs. She gets into it as the series goes on, and she is half Canadian. So I said, honey, it's in your blood. Your mother's well, she's not half Canadian. She's a Newfie. My grandmother is from, my mother-in-law is from Newfoundland. So she's kind of a Canadian. She's a Newfie. So my wife is half Canadian. So I get, and she has cousins. My cousins now through marriage who live in Brantford.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we know someone who lives there.
We sure do. In fact, my cousin played baseball against him as a child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so my cousin Paulie Bell played against Wayne, and they knew they weren't friends, but everyone knew who Wayne was. I mean, it's Wayne Gretzky. He was a phenom at a very young age. So yeah, I have cousins in Brantford.
Okay.
So I'm kind of Canadian.
Canadian by association. We'll see.
Sure, I'll take it. Thank you.
So then, I dare ask: is there a team you're going for in the Final Four? And don't worry, I will not judge you. Don't worry. There's no wrong answer.
No judging. Here's my dilemma.
Okay.
I love to see a team win back-to-back because it's rarely done.
Yes.
And Tampa's still built for it now. In my opinion, which is far from an expert, I felt the team that could knock Tampa off would be Vegas due to their 4 lines, their depth, their goaltending, their defensemen. Now, as I watch, after last night's game, I think the Islanders may not come back. I think Tampa will win the series. Watching Montreal play, and going back to what I said earlier, Carey Price, Weber, the defenseman, the 4th line, these young guys, the way it's all meshed together, this Montreal team can skate and play with Tampa. I think tonight will tell everything. Whoever wins tonight's game will win the series. Okay. And then that team, whoever it is going to have to take on Tampa. I just don't think the Islanders are going to come back. I wish they would. I want 7 games. I'm a big fan of 7-game series. So my thoughts are it's going to be Tampa and Vegas. And I think Vegas can unseat Tampa.
Okay.
At the same time, if my childhood team, Montreal Canadiens, happen to go to the Stanley Cup Finals, I'm watching and cheering.
All right, good answers. I like it. You know what? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I am a Montreal Canadiens fan, living here, born, raised, currently living here. But at the end of the day, I'm also just an NHL fan. much like you are. I mean, I love the game. I love to watch. I love to follow, read, talk about it. You name it. So
It's also interesting for me now that I'm so far removed from Cool Shots days. I root for players, the ones who I used to know back in the day, because there's very few left, Dave.
you can imagine that.
So I'll bring up right now. I've interviewed Carey Price back when he was younger, Weber when he was with Nashville, Corey Perry here in Anaheim when he was a Duck, and Stahl when he was with the Carolina Hurricanes. So these guys I have a tie to in some ways. I interviewed them years ago.
Okay.
I still have to root for them because of those reasons.
That's cool. Now, like, I mean, are there interviews that, like you were talking about before, the builders, like the pioneers?
Yeah.
Are there interviews that give you chills still to this day? Like you say, like you talked about it before off air. You got to talk to your idol, Beliveau.
Well, Jean Beliveau was my idol, and back in the corner there is a hockey jersey from my childhood, and it looks like the Canadiens jersey because the team I played for as a young kid in Massachusetts. That's the jerseys. We're the Van Horn Aces. And I wore number 4 because I loved Jean Beliveau. And my friends hated me because I'm from Massachusetts. You heard me correct. And I didn't wear number 4 because of Bobby Orr. So they're like, Moriarty, you're weird. And I said, yes, I am. Fast forward, when I sat down to do the Pioneers interview with Mr. Beliveau, I had to tell him beforehand. I've interviewed everybody. I don't get nervous. I know who they all are. However, Beliveau was my childhood, and I was a little boy. And I said to him that story that I just told you. And he was, as he always was, a perfect gentleman and thankful and congratulatory and moved that I would wear his number as a little kid in Massachusetts when Bobby Orr was at the height. So yeah, that one sticks out in a big way. Bobby Orr sticks out as well. Bobby was not a pioneer, but Bobby and I played hockey with him once in a charity game in Boston. I've interviewed him a few times. And one time he was getting ready with Don Cherry. They were coaching the CHL All-Star game.
Yep.
We were doing a story up there and on the guys, on the game, on some players, whatever it was in my NHL days. And we had Bobby. So we're going to interview Bobby Orr rinkside in Calgary. And before the interview, I had asked my boss, because I had a picture from the charity hockey game I played with Bobby of 2 guys skating after a puck. And he and I were shoulder to shoulder. Orr on the back of his jersey, Moriarty on the back of mine. Oh my God, I'm on the ice with Bobby Orr. Seriously. Okay. Having said that, I had a picture. I said to my boss, I'm not going to ask for autographs, but can I ask for Bobby Orr's autograph? He says, you better ask for it. So I tell Bobby beforehand, I'm going to do this. He says, great. Interview's over. I said, Bobby, I'd love to have you sign this. If you would, please. I have 2 of them. Please sign one to me and one to my father. He said, I'd love to. Takes the picture, looks at it. He says, turn the camera back on, please, to my cameraman. Mm-hmm. He said, now, I want you to look at this, at Dan now skating next to me. There's a puck in front of us. You see how Dan's striding? He's playing lazy hockey. I'm like, what? You just dissed me, Mr. Orr. All I wanted was your autograph. That's the way he was. Is a wonderful man. So yes, Bobby Orr sticks out, and one more sticks out, and it was the first interview of Pioneers, and it was with Gordie Howe. We had this idea to do a series of Pioneers. Let's do Gordie first and see if it works. And we brought 3 cameras in. Gordie's sons, Marty and Mark, said, it's fine, you can do this. And we went to Detroit, did it in the locker room. It went really well. And fast forward, his son got a hold of me and thanking me for the interview and said, you have to understand, that was the last full-length sit-down that my dad did. And that's, I didn't know that was true. His son told me that. I believe him. Maybe he was just being nice to me. Doesn't matter. The fact that it was said, I thought, oh, wow. I could have been, or might have been Gordie Howe's last full-length sit-down interview.
Yeah.
And he was wonderful. We had him for almost an hour and a half. He was great because all the guys, we said, look, we need you for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. We're not sure how long they're going to go. We'll cut these into half-hour shows. And some of the guys, you had to cut it shorter because they were getting older.
Yeah.
And Gordy was fantastic, stuck in there with us. And it was, yeah, man, it's Gordie Howe, man. It's Mr. Hockey. It was beautiful.
That sounds surreal. I mean, to be honest, I don't think his kid was lying. I don't think Mark Murray would be lying about that, because that does not seem like a story you'd make up. Yeah. Or you'd add to say, like, oh, here's a pat on the back.
Yeah.
You get that often with players nowadays, but with a player of his caliber, of his repertoire, his history, that's something, wow. Now,
by the way, you have to call out Lake Forest
absolutely.
College. This is Lake Forest College in Lake Forest, Illinois. It's where I played college hockey.
He's repping, guys. He's repping. Shout out to Lake Forest.
They gave me a college education. They were nice to me. I played for 4 years. They were nice. It was great.
Yeah, no, my hockey was not good. It was deck hockey. I played floor hockey, and I was not good at that either.
Nothing wrong with it. We all play hockey because we all love it.
Yeah, I'm very good at playing NHL on the PlayStation. I can tell you that. But
you're way ahead of me, Dave. I can't play it. I'm not good at video games. Never got into them ever.
That's okay. All right, now I'm gonna ask you a couple more. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is this okay, or you're?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I got a few more minutes. Let's do it.
All right. Now, this one's, I'm going to ask you a question because it diverts to my origins of covering hockey. Also, my wife is a big advocate. Do you follow any women's hockey by chance?
Do I follow women's hockey? Whenever I can, yes. And here's why. When I was younger here in Hollywood, I was working with some friends of mine who were doing hockey schools, and I was helping coach. And then I coached a team of young kids. And on that team, I had 2 girls. One of them was Brooke White, who is now involved in professional hockey with women. And the other one was, I'm gonna see, now you did this, I'm gonna blank on her name. Ruggiero.
Yeah, Angela Ruggiero.
Angela Ruggiero was the former captain of the U.S. national team. Now, they were 2 of my better hockey players. They were my 2 girls. They both played defense. They were both dominant they were all 10, 11 years old. Okay. And then fast forward to the Salt Lake Olympics when the women's hockey team was there. I got a card, a little card in the mail from Angela Ruggiero saying, "Hey, Coach Dan, thanks. You're one of the first coaches I had when I was 10 or 11 years old, and now I'm at the Olympics." It's so touching for a young woman to do that, to send me that note when she's getting prepared to play in the Olympic Games. So yeah, I'm a big fan of women's hockey, and I wish there was more of it. And Cami Granato and I go way back. I've worked with Cami before. We've done interviews together before. Back in the day when she was involved in the NHL and I was there at the same time, we always saw each other. Her husband, Ray Ferraro, and I became great friends. I haven't spoken to Ray in years. But yes, my history with women's hockey goes back to Angela Ruggiero and Brooke White when they were 10, 11 years old. And I watch women's hockey all the time. You're kidding me? When you get to watch women's hockey and you see how, I'm going to be biased here, how great the U.S. and Canada are when they play each other. I mean, those hockey games are unbelievable. They're unbelievable. Yeah. The skill is through the freaking roof, and I just love watching them play. And I love the fact that women's hockey in North America is helping women's hockey grow worldwide. Mm-hmm. It's getting bigger in Scandinavian countries. It's getting bigger in Asian countries. It's getting bigger. And that's a nice thing that the US and Canada can be 2 of the places that allow this to happen.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my background, so when I was at Dawson, so this was college, post high school, before university, what we have in Quebec, we're weird, don't ask. But I was in the sports journalism and the journalism class, and they said, we need a writer for some sports events. And I said, oh, sure, okay. And they said, you want to do hockey? Well, yes, that was not even a question. And they said it was women's hockey. So I said, oh, okay, sure. And like, I'll tell you this quickly. There's my first 2 games. My first game, they sent me to a game. They said it was at 2:00 in the afternoon. It was near my parents' house. I went over and I said I was media, and I went in and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm here for the Dawson game. They're like, Dawson played at 10:50 this morning. So I was like confused. So I went in and I was like, okay, I'll watch this game. They said, well, the coach for Dawson is still here. So I interview him, and he gives me a full interview. And then he says, well, we won the game 2-1, gives me his speech, and says, well, our goal scorer, who got both goals, is actually still here too. So I interviewed her. And then afterwards, I read the article, making it as much as I can descriptive for not attending the game. Following that, my editor says, Landsman, your article was really good. You really nailed it. It seems like you were really into the game. I'm like, I wasn't there.
Yes, I was. I was into it. I was sleeping that morning when it happened, but I was into it.
But then fast forward to the week after, I got my next real article, a game that I was going to be at, and I watched the game. Dawson team wins 5-2. They demolished the other team, and one girl on the Dawson team had 4 goals and 1 assist. I'm like, oh my God, she's the player of the game. I have to talk to her. I start doing my interview. Mid-interview, her teammates come behind her and give her a birthday cake because it was her 18th birthday.
Brilliant.
And I'm like, and then I'm like, continue my interview as awkward as I can as she's eating her birthday cake. And then I'm like, so it must be good to have good line mates, you know, like good people to pass you the puck. And she says, line mates, I'm a defenseman. I was like, wait, what? And this girl, turned out to be Catherine Ward, who went on to the national level.
Wow.
I think she played for 3 Olympics. You know, like it's just, that was my first big interview in hockey in general. And then voila. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. Now for this, like, would you ever do a revival? Like a Cool Shots 2.0? I'll be your co-host. I promise.
Well, if I was ever offered it, of course I would. I would be foolish not to. I don't believe it'll come back. And if it does ever come back, they would go with someone who's much younger than me.
So then I'll be your co-host.
Exactly. You are much younger. They would go after a younger crowd, and that would make, as a former producer myself, I would understand not having me host it. I would have someone much younger, and probably have a male and a female much younger doing it together. Now, the flip side of that is, it would be great if Pioneers came back and we could do another 13 of them or something like that, because that is something that I would do, and I would do, and I could do at my age. That would be accepted as an interviewer. That would be fine for that kind of show, Pioneers. Cool Shots would not have someone like me as a host, and I totally understand it. However, I wish it came back for us hockey fans. I'd love to see it, Cool Shots 2.0, and at the same time, Pioneers 2.0.
Yeah.
I'll host Pioneers. You can do Cool Shots.
Deal. I mean, it would be fun because what it helped me with is it helped me learn about the game, learn about the players. You know, I was a kid as a kid, and still to this day now, you know, collecting hockey cards. I used to look at the card, and I wouldn't be like necessarily looking at the value. That would be a side part. But I would look at the card, and I'd look at, okay, this guy's name, okay, his position, his team, where he's from, his stats, and then I became a verbal like encyclopedia of being like, I can name 8 players in the NHL with the same birthday as me.
Right.
Why is that pertinent? It's not.
But it is to you. It is to you.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, Dave. And that's a cool thing, because we can find those little tidbits that make us feel a little closer to the people we idolize and cheer for. It's nice.
Well, I can tell you that one of those players is the Dano Chara. Not happy about that, but yeah. You win some, you lose some.
Sorry.
Now I'll ask you 2 last questions, and then you're off the hook, so don't worry. But like, have you kept any souvenirs from the show? Like, I mean, any?
Well, I did keep all of my stuff from Minnesota Wild. I still have that jersey that the whole team signed to me, and I kept the gloves and the helmet. They gave me everything. I may have given away the pants or things like that by now, but yes, I did keep all the stuff from Minnesota Wild, and that was really cool. And that's it. It was so many years ago. Although I do have a really cool old NHL leather jacket, which will never go out of style, and leather will last forever. And it's a pretty cool NHL jacket. It's leather, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty hip. So I have that. Other than that, I'm looking around in my office. Is there anything here that I can pick out that I would still have? No, except that picture over my right shoulder, your left. Mm-hmm. That's a picture of me and Paul Correa.
I've heard of him.
Back in that game. You heard of him, yeah. So that's there on the wall, which I really I cherish that, because I look at it and I realize I survived.
Well, he wasn't a tough guy.
He
But to
wasn't.
be fair, you were on the ice at the same time as him, and you told me you did one shift. So to have that one shift,
One shift and that was it. That's all I had.
to have one shift against Paul Correa, that's pretty surreal.
It was surreal.
God. I will end with this though,
Okay.
and this is not necessarily pertaining to me. This is pertaining to anyone else who is maybe listening to this video, or just in general for knowledge. Do you have any advice for like budding young sports journalists of any ages?
Yeah, I do. What I said earlier in this interview.
Yeah.
Things are going to happen to you. The more you get yourself involved, the more things happen, and you do get breaks. And when you get the break, kick the door down. Do not let the door that just opened to you close on you. Whatever it takes, make sure people know you're there, that you know you want to be involved, and they know that you're taking it seriously and you want to do this. You're doing it right now by finding me and interviewing me. Years later, you're making a statement that you want to do more of this. That's kicking the door down and keeping yourself involved in any way you possibly can. That's the advice I have. I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't get a communications degree. My college degree is in psychology and art history. And I played college hockey, and I was going to be a young actor, and then hosting came my way because things happen. And I realized I'm much better and much happier being a TV and radio host than I am being an actor. And that's what I did. And then from that, I became a communication, public speaking coach with a company called Burst Trainings. And that's what I have now with my two partners. It's our company, and we're working virtually, and we're going to do more of it worldwide. But that's what you do. I had a chance to do it, kick the door down, and do it. Create something for yourself. And that is the homework or the knowledge or the suggestions that I have for anybody who's listening to this or wants to do it. How about this? Do what Dave's doing. If you want to do this, do what Dave's doing.
Oh my God. I'm just in such awe. I mean, I can't thank you enough. I mean, really, this has been such a surreal interview. Like, you taking the time. I mean, you are a very busy person with a very busy schedule. You've got your family. So you to take the time for me today, and in general, it has been such a surreal and utter pleasure and treat for me. So Dan, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you.
Well, Dave, guess what? I had a blast too. So thank you. That was fun for me to connect with somebody who I met when you were 13 years old.
Yeah.
Who said that would ever come back around again. And that's why I thank you for reaching out and allowing me to do this. And it's fun for me to relive also. I'm a human.
You are a human. But the thing is, like, you were a human, but for me, you were like a guy on camera that I would watch and never be able to be like, shake your hand. You know, that's something for me.
And now you're the guy on camera who came to me.
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
How the tables have turned, right? But Dan, thank you so much. Seriously.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.